Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Dreaming Forward podcast. I'm Kalyn Wilson,
And I'm Shalon Johnson.
and today we're introing a segment called Dear Lil Sis, where we offer younger Black women the mentorship and the nuggets of wisdom that we wish we had when we were their age. We've learned a thing or two in our 20s and 30s. And so we want to make sure that we help them avoid all the potholes that we unfortunately stepped into. So while this segment is for everyone, and I'm sure everybody can extract some wisdom and some guidance that could be helpful, it is targeted toward the young Black women that we have once been as we have evolved into the Black women that we are today. So, our topic for this first session is, can you be a solo leader? Leading by yourself. That's it, just you. Shalon, can you do it?
So this is a two-parter. Because I believe that when you are working in an organization or a company and you are a
Mhm,
leader, that you cannot, um, you need a team in order to
mm,
help you, and that's for various things. You need people who are experts in their fields or in their specific areas to help you
mhm.
to be able to lead. And so in that sense, I don't think so.
And
However,
this to be I'm gonna make a little caveat to that before we go off into the other side,
mhm,
because this doesn't always mean that you have direct reports. So I think sometimes
right,
people think that leaders are only people managers and not ICs or individual contributors, and that's not
mm,
true. Because you might be the leader of projects, you might be leaders of a particular segment of the business. You just don't have direct reports.
right, right. All right, now let me get to the other side of it.
I know. I'm waiting on it. I already know.
So the other side of it is that I'm thinking for the single parents out there.
Mhm.
And so in those instances, even though it's not ideal that you have to be the solo leader in those situations,
Mhm.
unfortunately, you have to be the solo leader in those situations.
Yeah.
That's not to say that you can't have a team around you, like your family, who's your village, your friends, et cetera, et cetera. Those things absolutely, or those people absolutely make it much easier for you to lead.
Yeah.
But as you know, sometimes it's just you as a parent, and you don't want to necessarily fail your child because of that. So, what do? We make it happen, we figure
Yeah.
things out.
Yeah.
And in those instances, I believe, while it's not ideal, again, you can be a solo leader in those instances. I know people gonna argue with me about that.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's true. If you have a parent who is intermittently present consistently, but not always with the same level of quality that's needed, or a parent that's just completely absent,
Yeah,
you do have to be the leader. It's not even about playing the mom and the dad role. It's about, I need to
exactly.
lead and guide my child to where they're going. And let me make a note to you, ma'am, because I have seen over the years the ways in which you have worked tirelessly to not just be a mama, but an excellent mother to your daughter. I
You're
think
not about to make me cry on this podcast. We ain't
I'm
doing that.
no, I'm serious because, and this is for someone who at times has questioned whether or not I had what it takes to be a mom. So I grew up out of my grandmother's children, only my mother and my uncle had kids. The rest of her children didn't have any kids. So I didn't grow up with cousins because my cousins were a generation older. They were always with their mom's side, etc. So I didn't grow up watching motherhood really other than my mother and maybe casually observing my friends' parents. So I've learned a lot about motherhood from you, especially mothering in this generation. I've learned so much about how you can be creative and innovative and affirm your child and find ways to cultivate their talents because I didn't see that growing up. I've watched you prioritize your child in the way that you manage your career, in the way that you build what is even meaningful to you and the sacrifices that you've made there. And so I just want to affirm you, my friend, and let you know how much of an incredible mother and an incredible parent you have been to your daughter, and how inspiring that is to other people. So I had to say that. I'm gonna leave it alone because I don't
Yes,
want to
you
make
better.
you emotional, but I had to say that.
Thank you. No, thank you so much. I have to credit that to my mother
Mm,
and my aunts. So I come from a huge family. I don't
mm-hmm,
even know how many first cousins I have. It got to be
mm-hmm,
around 100, if not more.
mm-hmm,
And so my aunts, including my mother, they do everything.
mm.
Like they do everything for their children.
Wow.
My mother will cook for me now. Like if my mother was here and I had to go to work, she would pack my lunch. And
Oh,
things like growing up, me and my sister, my older sister, we were in activities every weekend. And
wow.
my mother would take us to those things before we were old enough to go by ourselves on a bus and a train.
Yeah.
She would be with us doing that, even though she grocery shopped that morning, even though she did the laundry for everybody in the house, even though she worked 9 to 5, and she worked far, y'all. We from
Wow.
Brooklyn. She worked in Manhattan on an island, like so she had to take the bus an hour and a half. Then got on a bus to the island. It was crazy. And then when I was younger, she was in college
Mm,
in the Bronx. So she used to do all of that stuff, come home, and still make sure we were good.
mm.
And I don't think I ever heard my mother complain about it. I'm not gonna say I don't complain about it because I'll be tired. I'm not gonna go that far. But my mother was a great example for us in making sure that we were good no matter what. And so I'm just really doing what I saw my
Wow.
family do.
I think that's so powerful about how the capacity and the stamina. Y'all gonna hear me talk about stamina a lot on this podcast, just FYI. The capacity and the stamina to be a solo leader
Mm,
is easier to obtain when leadership is modeled to you.
yeah.
Because a lot of what we see in leadership, as much of a paradox as that, or an oxymoron as it sounds, but it's built through following other people. So you have a model of leadership you see, so you follow that. You have a model and then you follow that. You have a model and then you follow that. And so when it's modeled to you in your immediate family,
Hmm.
it makes a little bit more sense to you because you get the intimacy of seeing the process of how they've done what they've done. And
Yeah.
then you can still eat the meat, spit out the bones, but at least then you have the full story. If I'm watching, for example, the way that TD Jakes leads, I don't know him personally, right? I only know snippets of him from sermons or other, speaking engagements. But I can pay attention to my mother and see the parts of her leadership style that I loved or didn't love or want to emulate or don't want to emulate. There, that intimacy is going to be critical for building your solo leadership capacity.
Right.
You chewing on something so hard in your mind. I could tell, I could see it.
No, you stumped me. I do want to make a really big note though that my mother wasn't a single parent,
mm,
at least when I was growing up.
mm,
Um, she was at some point, but she had a village. My
mm-hmm,
grandmother, all her siblings, things like that. But when I was growing up, I haven't experienced my mother being a single parent. My father lived with me my whole life,
mm-hmm,
and she still did all of those things. They just had their
mm,
roles. And so I say that to say, even though I'm a single parent at this point, I'm still doing the things I saw my mother do, even with a partner. So
wow.
I was still able to learn what I needed to do for my family through that. And then when I get my husband from Amazon any day now, hopefully.
You got to get that Prime one day shipping. You
Listen,
no, you on the slow track.
when he comes in the mail,
They on back order.
I will hopefully be able to be a good compliment to him because I'm already
Yeah.
coming with all of these skills on how to lead on
Yeah.
my own, but I just need somebody to be able to complement that and to pick up where I can't, you know?
That's the real question is you can be a solo leader, but do you want to be? So
No,
this is going to be really important,
yeah,
sis, because there's a conversation floating around, especially among Black women, about hypergamy and who's masculine and femininity. And are you going to be independent? And are you divesting? All of these conversations are centering on who do you want to be?
hmm,
You can be a million things. You can be the high powered career woman. You could be a sex worker. You could be an escort. You could be the person who just goes along to gets along. You could have a gang of friends. You could have no friends. You could have 10 partners. You could have one partner. You could choose to be a person who's like, I'm straight being single for the rest of my life. You have options, sis. And so the power and the danger of being a solo leader is that you are first a solo leader of yourself.
yeah,
All of these conversations that we are having about how to get over or how to do other people, how to get other people to give a da 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 da. The main question you need to ask yourself is, can I lead myself?
yep,
How do you lead yourself? How do you make decisions on behalf of yourself? How do you advocate for yourself? How do you check yourself? How do you correct yourself? How do you critique yourself? How do you celebrate yourself? How do you reward yourself? How do you recognize yourself? Do you know yourself? Do you like yourself? What do you like about yourself? What
yeah,
do you hate about yourself? What you want to change about yourself? Why you want to change that about yourself? Who told you should change that? All of those are questions that you need to ask yourself
hmm,
before you start going external with the leadership.
hmm,
Because until we learned how to lead ourselves, it wasn't a question of, "Ooh, can I lead you?"
hmm,
People watch. I'm so much more effective at leading other people in this 37th year because people watch how I lead myself. I can't tell you the number of people who have come to me like, I appreciate that you do dot dot dot. Hey, I noticed that you do dot dot dot. I want to do that too. Can you tell me more about that? And that's the beginning. That's the opening of the conversation.
hmm,
It's not me telling them what to do or coercing people into what to do or manipulating people.
right,
It's me leading me.
right. But can we be honest here too? A lot of people act as though they want to lead by themselves,
I
and
knew
I'm
you was gonna go there.
specifically
Uh-huh.
talking about single parents.
Uh-huh.
Notice that I'm not singling out single mothers. I'm saying
Right.
single parents.
Yep.
None of y'all don't wanna lead by yourselves. Like, let's
Mm.
just stop.
Mm-hmm.
It is probably the hardest thing that I have done to
Mm-hmm.
date, and I have
Mm-hmm.
done some difficult things.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't it doesn't feel good at times, it's lonely at times,
Mm.
there's sometimes where it's like, "Oh, we need to eat dinner," and it's like, "It's you, you gotta cook dinner. It's
Mm-hmm.
only you. There
It's
is no
me.
option."
Yeah.
Nobody trying to buy Uber Eats with they $20 fees every day, you know? So,
Shout
we
out to Uber Eats too, just in case y'all want to sponsor me.
but seriously though, you gotta be real with yourself. Like
Yeah.
we gotta stop. It's not easy. It's a great skill to know
Yeah.
how to do it by yourself, but let's not promote that you want to do it by yourself or that it's easy to do it by yourself because it's not. Um, Michaela makes a really good point where you have to know yourself
Mm-hmm.
first because a part of you knowing yourself is knowing what your limit is
Mm.
when you're leading. Everybody has to
Pause.
know what their limit is.
You gotta say that again. That is whew,
You know, I ain't know.
yeah.
I don't know what I just said. You can't ask me to pull that back.
I'm gonna repeat it for you. You gotta know what your limit is in
Yeah,
leadership. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to. And
Yeah.
that's whether you are leading a home or whether you are leading an organization.
Yeah.
You got to know when you got to take that PTO. You got to know when you got to take that vacation. And for
Yep.
me, there's been times as a parent where it's like, I got to know when to just close my door.
Mm.
I got to know when to sleep in a little bit. I got to know when I need to take a walk or when I need to just stop explaining myself. Like
Right.
you have to know that because you're going to burn yourself out. And maybe working in an organization as a leader, it's okay to burn yourself out because you
Mm-hmm.
can leave, but you can't leave when you're a parent.
Mm. I want to give a flip side to this because I was married briefly, like for a hot second in my 20s. Yeah. And I skirt right on out of that thing real fast. But one of the reasons why I had to dip, among many, was because I knew that I had a certain standard and threshold of leadership in order to be led. And this is going to get into this conversation around submission and leadership and who's the head and all that stuff. Because at up until that point, because I largely have had to lead myself even as a child, I knew what type of leader I could respect.
Mhm,
And while I was willing to give him a threshold to become that leader, I also realized that it wasn't worth it to
mhm,
wait for him to change into something that he didn't really want to be. So it was easier to just remove myself and just lead myself for a time. And then now, over the past like year or two, maybe, I've gotten back into dating seriously and saying, okay, I want a partner. But that was time where I was like, no, I want to be comfortable leading myself, creating the life that I want, creating the standards that I want, and then invite someone in to complement that.
mhm,
You can't change people into something that they don't want to be.
mhm,
And even if you can, it's not sustainable. I promise you.
mhm,
So I want you, little sis, to be cognizant of the fact that if you don't know yourself, if you don't know what leadership means to you, it's going to be very difficult to either be led, co lead, or lead someone else.
mm. And I would challenge you to listen to your own voice
Come on.
because there are so many opinions these days. There, everybody has a microphone and anyone can publish in a matter of seconds,
Come on.
but that doesn't mean that everyone's message is for you. So really figure out what it is that you want to do, as Kalyn said, and
Hmm.
listen to your own voice,
Hmm.
chart your own path, and I promise you that will be the happiest you'll probably ever be.
Hmm. I think we can wrap with that by just reflecting on the fact that everything we've said points back to you knowing you.
Mm,
The most powerful quality, sis, that you can ever develop in yourself is self awareness.
yes.
Being aware of who you are, knowing your moods, knowing your thresholds, knowing your boundaries, and knowing that they will change over time, knowing that life happens. And so, how do you typically respond to things? Do you want to change those responses? What could that look like? Again, knowing yourself. When you do that, it's not even a question of whether or not you're a leader.
Right.
Because again, you already leading yourself. So, on that note, please let us know down below. First and foremost, do you think that you can be a leader by yourself? Could you be a solo leader? Do you want to be a solo leader? And what does that look like for you? What do you think about how self awareness plays into solo leadership? Tell us
Mm.
down below and be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We'll talk to y'all again soon. See ya.
Bye.